The AMGE Mark IIB, commonly known as the Fullripper, is a weapon known for its high magazine capacity of 140, which allows the user to fire for extended periods of time. Although having a larger magazine capacity does come with a lengthy 4.8 second reload. Its damage is also relatively low, doing 100 damage per shot at optimal distances. It makes up for it slightly with an above average fire rate of 800 rounds per minute. This, combined with the ability to shoot through any armor type, makes this weapon more suitable for larger groups of smaller targets rather than bigger, bulkier ones. If you didn't catch on already, today's build will revolve around the Fullripper. This build was inspired by an individual named iLovePickles142 who had commented on a video a few months prior. Now admittedly, this build isn't going to carry you or your team through every scenario imaginable. If you came to this video expecting me to say that this can solo up to hazard 100 reliably, you came to the wrong place. This is the type of build I play when I simply want to shoot things, because I don't know about you guys, but being able to shoot a lot is pretty fun. So let's get on to the main topic, the Fullripper, which comes from the NHI Contractor perk. From a number standpoint, this weapon is pretty subpar damage-wise compared to other options of similar investment. Although what it lacks in burst damage and eliminating bigger threats, it makes up for it in sustained damage. If you're expecting to kill bosses quickly like with the Volca, you are sorely going to be disappointed. But it's not to say it isn't good for anything. The ability to shoot constantly due to its large magazine capacity allows anyone skilled enough to switch between priority targets without needing to worry about reloading in most cases in this build. The capability to shoot through any armor type cannot be understated either. Simply being able to shoot anything, anywhere, allows for very consistent damage across any and all targets. The next perk is Royal Flush, because no matter how you build around the Fullripper, the issues will become apparent. Since this weapon has a low damage output, the 15% crit and 35% extra damage is sorely needed. The accuracy and recoil reduction allows you to make it nearly laser accurate with no recoil. Then finally, the reduced times in reload allows you to shoot more often. I'm sure some of you guys are tired of hearing the upsides of Royal Flush, but that's just how the game is currently, since Royal Flush is extremely point efficient for guns. The next perk I prefer to use is Reload Drills. I really like it combined with Royal Flush because the reload finishes on the Fullripper before the animation even completes. Although another reason is that having less reload downtime means less time for you to die because you weren't shooting. And I don't know about you guys, but shooting is a lot more enjoyable than reloading in my opinion. Now you may wonder, how do we try to counteract the 60 HP from Royal Flush? The answer to this is to simply not get hit. Although I am half joking, Blitzkrieg helps us somewhat achieve this goal. If you somehow never played Royal Flush with Blitzkrieg, you essentially walk faster than every anomaly besides Blitzwalkers. Now keep in mind you can nearly outrun everything in this game with Royal Flush on higher hazards. And now imagine nearly always having that speed omnidirectionally. We need this for this build in particular because it makes it easier to sustain our damage on things like bosses while backpedaling without worrying about them catching up. Although you do have to be mindful of enemies that are behind you. Our next perk is 4 of a kind, since our main objective is to eliminate as many anomalies as possible. You can argue there are better options, but I found this to be the most enjoyable. So first off, the 4x crit damage, which is already a reasonable damage increase, combined with the other 2 temporary buffs from this perk, which are the diamond and the clubs, which increase the damage and crit chance you have respectively. The other 2 buffs, which are the spades and the hearts, are also a nice quality of life addition. Not to mention jackpot being a thing with this perk, which simply activates when you manage to get lucky enough to get all temporary buffs on a single kill. The jackpot buff grants you 44 seconds of every temporary 4 of a kind buff and can stack with the temporary buffs if you continue activating it. Although it isn't called jackpot for no reason, since it is a 0.1% chance for this buff to even occur on a kill. So that means, expect to see this buff around every 1,000 kills. That being said, when it does happen, it's usually a good time. The last perk is H-Road because we had a point to spend and we might as well now be completely useless. For the class and specialization, I use Assault with the Plate Repair Kit, but there really isn't a right option here. Then Swift Resupply to synergize with Plate Repair Kit to use it as another armor kit. Next is Hair Trigger because the Fullripper really needs damage multipliers, and this is the biggest damage multiplier that is passive for this gun out of the 2 other specializations. And we are finally using Hello's Fuel because I don't feel like thinking about or timing the ammo box for bosses or something. It also does help in general in horde clearing or sometimes anchor corruptions, so there's that. The starting loadout really doesn't matter as long as you're using the FL Stagnate Serum to get out of bad situations. Although the typical loadout I use when I do have credits are 2 Fullrippers, whatever pistol, the Vagrant Blade, the Stagnate, usually 2 Enforcer Nano Grenades, and Invil Combat Stims. Now this build is not meant to be amazing, it was mostly meant to be a fun challenge for myself, since, to be honest, there are better options than the Fullripper unfortunately. I can barely get to Hazard 60 on solo max kill with this thing, due to how difficult it is to kill bosses with the Fullripper. That being said, it genuinely feels pretty rewarding when you even accomplish that. Honestly, I wouldn't even have posted this video, but it was one of the few builds I kept playing for a very simple reason of, I had fun playing it. Remember guys, if you're not having fun, then why bother? That being said, there are not really any tips specifically for this build since it falls in line with the previous guide I made a bit ago. Although if you want to do what I do with the build sometimes, just don't buy a melee weapon until Hazard 40 and just try to shoot everything with the Fullripper. It really forces you to learn good positioning in this game. This is what I did when I only had like 40 minutes to play before I had to go to work or something to kill time. Today's video is a little bit shorter this time since I only recently got back to editing. That being said, I hope Roblox doesn't implode on itself, but anyways, see ya later, probably.